And welcome now to another edition of Living the B3 Way. And today I want to talk to you about something that I suffered with most of my life. I had irritable bowel when I was younger, for a good part of my first third of my life. And I dealt with bloating and gas, which I may still have some issues with, as my son likes to call me, the world's best farter. But what I like to realize is I don't care about that because I don't suffer from the irritable bowel anymore. I know how debilitating that is. And I wanted to talk today about the challenges. I had a client once who came to me, he was a surgeon, and he didn't realize how easy it was for him to fix this problem. But he had been suffering for years, to the point that he had to actually be careful when he was in surgery. He had to break out of surgery sometimes because he could not control the challenges that he was having with irritable bowel. And for those of you that suffer from irritable bowel, you know what it's like. But the gas and the bloating is not fun either. So why do people have this major challenge? What is it that's happening today that it's getting worse and worse? Well, there are three main issues that I like to deal with, and it definitely made a difference in my life. I don't really have irritable bowel at all anymore. So that's wonderful. I'm glad that I was able to resolve it. And for that one client, I was able to really completely eliminate his irritable bowel, and he was thrilled to be able to not worry about being he even had to have surgery at one point where they thought cutting out pieces of his colon would help, and it didn't. So let's like to take a deeper dive here. So what's the number one reason? Well, some people tolerate certain foods over others, but I'm going to tell you that highly processed foods is the number one reason that people are suffering from these terrible symptoms of gas, bloat, and irritable bowel. Our gut it's like a garden, and it's all how you tend that garden. If you want to tend that garden by ignoring it, it's like having a lawn where you ignore it and it's going to be filled with weeds. Likewise, if you tend your garden and you tend it every day, consistently, just a little bit, you can have a beautiful, lush green lawn or beautiful garden filled with flowers that everyone's going to admire. And the same with your colon and with your digestive system. When it comes to your gut is literally an extension of your skin. We start in our mouth and we go all the way down to through your stomach, to your small intestine, large intestines, and then out your anus. It is really an extension, and we put things in from the outside. So our body has to protect ourselves. So there are specific things that our body will do, and things that it will protect us from, simply because it's not really the inside of our body yet. It's not on the inside until it gets through the barrier where we start absorbing food. And that's in that process of digestion. Well, where does the gut microflora come in? Well, if we think about bacteria, fungi, they've evolved over billions of years. If anything, it might be that they're managing us, because they can actually survive in our bodies in numbers greater than the total in each person, greater than the number of people that are in this world. There are that number of bacteria and fungi and different microorganisms that exist in your body, on your skin, throughout your body, in your mouth, in your digestive system, and all of that's normal and natural, but they all are needing nutrition. Well, we'll talk about that. But the biggest challenge we have is that we feed our bodies processed food. We weren't designed to eat processed food. Maybe occasionally you want to throw something in, that's fine. That works. But we were designed as animals, as we evolved, to eat whole foods and minimally processed foods. So if we find that we're eating a diet that is loaded with just processed foods for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, That's my first thing that I tell people to look at. We must eliminate the processed foods and get rid of the sugar and the fat as to the biggest degree as we can, because that is what's setting them off. And I'm not talking about eliminating all fat. I'm talking about the processed fats, like the hydrogenated fats, or things that are made and highly processed. The synthetic or highly milled and refined oils are just not healthy. There are certain other oils that certain people react to, and that's another problem, is that people ignore symptoms and triggers. They just ignore the stress that they're under, because just physiological stress or emotional stress can trigger these other problems, as well as ignoring foods that kind of just make your bowel go kaflooey, which is what used to happen to me. And it happened to my client who had that terrible situation where he would be in the OR. He was a surgeon, and he had to break sterility because he really had to run to the bathroom. It was that bad. How do you manage something like that? Well, we start with minimally processed foods, and we start feeding our bodies healthier foods that promote a healthier gut. We start feeding it things that provide probiotics and prebiotics, things that will create a healthier flora. And again, it's a flora, just like your garden. How do we make that garden grow? We have to feed it properly. A lot of people that I've worked with have also been through many bouts of antibiotics. So I want you to think of this. If you had a lawn and you threw a broad spectrum weed killer over the whole lawn and killed everything that was there, what would grow back? Have you ever tried it? Weeds, only weeds. The grass won't come back. And that's what happens a lot of times. That analogy, it's a crude analogy, but it's what happens when we take antibiotics. We don't always see the same flora come back, and that can create major problems over the long haul. Because as you know, in your lawn, you can't just leave it. Of course, it'll be green, but it's not going to be green with grass. It's going to be green with weeds. You're going to have to figure out what you need to do, whether you're going to have to reseed, you're going to have to pull those weeds out. But you know that with a lawn, if you plant a healthy lawn and you feed it and you take care of it, it will completely keep the weeds out to most degree. And then if you're constantly there watching and pulling the weeds out as you see them grow, your lawn can thrive. It's the same in your colon and in your digestive system. You want to eat we want to avoid highly processed foods, and we want to eat minimally processed whole foods. Important. Include foods with fiber, but it's not exclusively just fiber. It's things that are colorful, things that have also prebiotics and probiotics. Things like fiber is prebiotic, okay? And things like acidophilus or fermented foods like kimchi or yogurt or sauerkraut. These are things that actually have shown with studies to improve not just your flora and your microbiota in your gut, but they improve weight loss too. They'll improve mood because your colon cells are directly responsible, or indirectly, I could be, but indirectly also, for mood regulators. They actually can produce certain neuromodulators like dopamine, and that might be why we have cravings. Maybe it's the bacteria in our colon controlling us. But another major issue of why people are having problems with the gas, bloating, and irritable bowel is that we are creatures of the sun. We are creatures of a circadian rhythm. We've evolved with a circadian rhythm. And so it's important for us to eat at the same times daily. Not always, but skipping meals or changing the timing of meals will definitely impact your digestion and will increase bloating, gas, and symptoms like irritable bowel. Why? Because if your body knows that you're waking up at a certain time, and you're eating at a certain time, your circadian rhythm within each cell, within each organ, and also as a whole for your whole body, where it gets realigned using your brain, if it's constantly being challenged by eating at different times, your body doesn't know when it needs to be on and when it needs to be off. It likes to be set to saying, oh, this is when we eat. This is when we rest. This is when we sleep. This is when we're active, we're hunting, or we're exercising. When you change that routine, it creates havoc in the body. Now, our bodies can compensate, but the research that's out there will show you that when people are on a rhythm of eating, and they're on a rhythm of when they eat and what they eat, it makes a huge difference with absorption, digestion, even weight loss, stress levels, inflammation, you name it, and gut symptoms. All of those play a role. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of Living the B3 Way. I look forward to seeing you next week. Go make it a great week.